My name is Cameron, and at the time of this story, I was 23 years old. It happened a few months ago while I was working at a gas station finishing up my final year of college. Because my classes were all during the day, the only shift that I was able to work was the night shift. I would have rather not worked at all, but I needed the money pretty badly, so I found myself working full-time all throughout undergrad. Anyways, this particular night, I remember it being around 3 a.m. and the business was pretty slow. You see, after about midnight, the amount of customers I had coming in and out of the store was low, anywhere from 0 to maybe 10 people an hour. On top of this, most customers would be in and out quickly, as during this hour no one was here to loiter or chat. That was except for this man, apparently. You see, it all started when a man walked into the store. I didn't initially take much notice of the man, as he just looked like a normal customer. He walked over to the beverages and stood there for a while. Only when I say a while, I mean a while. In fact, I actually had forgotten the man was inside the store until I heard the door open to one of the drink coolers. Upon checking the time and seeing that it was just past 4 a.m., I realized that the man had been standing there, presumably in the exact same spot, for over an hour. I remember seeing him grab an iced tea, and that's when he began to make his way over towards the counter. Hey, will that be all, sir?" I said as he laid his drink down on the counter. It was at this point that the man looked at me. It was as if he had just noticed my presence, and judging by the look in his face, he didn't like it at all. He scrunched up his face, looked directly at me, and asked me my name. I simply pointed at my badge, a little bit confused, and that's when he responded even louder, almost yelling this time. "What's your name?" "It's Cameron. Will this be all? If you're not buying anything, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave," I said at this point, as I was getting irritated. I had been up since early that morning for class, and I had no time for customers like this. It was at that moment that something seemed to snap in the older man's face, as he screamed that he knew who I was and that he would kill me. He was literally banging on the glass that separated us and throwing things around the store. I was completely stunned. I alerted the police immediately as the man continued to hurl insults at me, calling me an ungrateful little bastard and describing the insane ways in which he'd quote-unquote make me pay. Then he just stopped. He stared at me for a second and began to walk off. I didn't even stop him, as he literally walked out of the store and into the dark. You see, though I wanted this man arrested, I wanted more than anything just for him to stop destroying the store, as I knew I would have to clean most of it. Shortly after this, the police arrived and informed me that they had already found the man. They didn't seem to either be able to or want to answer any more questions about the man, but they assured me that he was not going to be returning to the store. After this, I called my boss, and once she had made it to the store, I was relieved to find out I was able to leave early that night, as she would take over. I don't really know what the man's issue was, or what the entire scenario was all about. I assumed that the man was probably mentally unwell, and honestly I feel sorry for the man, but I'd be lying if I said the entire incident didn't freak me out. I'll never work the night shift again. To make you understand why, I'm going to tell you about an incident that took place last month when I was still working the overnight shift at CVS. You see, to preface this, I am a 21-year-old woman, and so when I originally applied for the job, my boss was apprehensive about leaving me alone in the store, as during the night, only one person is present in the store for the most part. After a lot of convincing though, I was able to get the shift, which excited me as it worked perfectly with my schedule, and I honestly always preferred night shift as they're less busy and involve less interaction. This was about 3 weeks into my new position, and at this point I felt pretty comfortable with the shift. I had my tasks down to a routine and found time to generally just sit on my phone as the store was extremely slow at night. I remember at the time that this happened being in the back of the store getting picks for the morning crew to stock when I heard the noise that meant the customers had entered the store. Doing as I normally would when this happened, I turned to make my way to the floor to greet and monitor the customers. Only when I made my way towards the door which led to the floor, I stopped dead in my tracks as I caught sight of 4 men out on the floor, 2 of whom were visibly armed. I ducked down as fast as I could and ran towards the small security closet before locking myself in. That's when I could clearly hear the shouts of men. I heard demands for whoever was working to open the register as the sounds of merchandise being knocked around and presumably shoved into bags could be heard. I was panicking at this point. I called the cops to let them know about the situation before hearing the door that led to the back being kicked open. I immediately hung up the phone and tried to slow my breathing so as not to be heard. At this point, I was on the verge of a breakdown as I tried to remain quiet. I knew that if I was hurt, I was no more than a fish in a barrel to men with guns. That's when I heard one of the men commanding the others to check all of the rooms to find whoever was working. I knew that it wouldn't be long before they found the one locked door that I was behind, and as I heard every door before mine being kicked open one by one, I knew my time was ticking down. I tried to remain quiet and calm as I heard the last door before mine being kicked open, only the man would never make it to my door. Through my quiet sobs and loud kicks, I heard the distant sirens, and I instantly crumbled as I knew I would be safe. I heard one of the men in the front of the store yell to get out as the sounds of scrambling were heard until the building was empty once again. I quit my job that same night, and though some may say it's not like I was hurt or anything, I can't even begin to describe the terror of this event. I have no desires to ever work a shift where I am alone again, as had the cops not arrived when they did, I literally wouldn't be here, and that's something that terrifies me to this day. This happened last summer when I was working at McDonald's. I worked the night shift at the time, and this meant that I generally dealt with the worst of the worst customers. On top of this, the McDonald's that I worked at was in a pretty bad area of town, so it wasn't uncommon for there to be fights that broke out in the inside of the store, especially when it was late. This night, though, was by far the worst experience I ever had there, and in fact, it was the entire reason I quit. I remember it being close to the end of my shift that night, which meant that it was probably anywhere from 4 to 5 in the morning at the time. The inside of the store was completely empty, and there were only a few customers in the drive-thru at the time. I remember getting through the orders seemingly with no hiccups and having an empty drive-thru after that. This empty period lasted for a while, and I remember almost thinking I wouldn't have to make another order that night. That was until I heard the door to the lobby open up. Almost immediately following this, the man who answered began screaming at our worker in the lobby so loud that all of us in the back could hear it. Apparently we had messed up his order and forgotten to give him half of his things despite charging him. I remember hearing Liz telling him that it was no problem and that we could give him all the things for free. Only that's when the man yelled that he wanted more than what he paid for and that it was the least we could do for being this stupid. This is when things escalated fast. One of my coworkers, Jake, upon hearing this, came out and told the man to leave if he was just going to insult us, and that we can give him his food, but nothing more. That's when the man in the lobby started yelling things that I can't quite remember. It was something along the lines of, "I'll do whatever I want, and if you don't give me what I want, I'll be back." That's when Jake told him to leave, or that he would call the cops. Upon hearing this, the man simply walked out. I felt surprised at the time about how simple it had been to get the man to leave, but even then I felt as if something was off. I suggested calling the police anyways, just to let them know about the man. I then at this point decided to take advantage of the now calm drive-thru in the lobby by using the bathroom. I wasn't even inside the bathroom for a minute when things exploded. I heard from the outside gunshots being fired into the store. The sound of shattered glass could be heard as well as the screams of my coworkers. I knew it was the man. He must have fired 30 shots before I heard the sounds of tires screeching and him leaving the parking lot. I was on the phone at the dispatcher already at this point, and I remember running out of the bathroom to check on everyone. There was broken glass all over the floor and bullet holes lined the walls. I remember seeing all my coworkers thankfully okay hiding in the back of the store. When the man had begun firing, they were all already near the back and had taken refuge behind a cooler door. I never found out if the man was caught or not. Frankly, all I cared about was that everyone was safe. I have so much sympathy for night workers, especially at these types of places, as I know firsthand how insane some customers can be. The sound of those gunshots still send fear into me every time I think about them, and I can't help but have nightmares about what could have happened had I not have gone to the bathroom.